All right, welcome to Pro Football First 50 Years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. You can go online, and especially if you're going back to the 20s and the 30s, you can obviously find the score of the game, a box score, who scored a touchdown, how far the field goal was, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might be able to find starting lineups for each team. But exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that going on here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game brings to the end, although both teams finished with the same exact record, one team could say that they had a very successful season, and the other one, well, maybe not so. Let's go right into each team's schedule here, and now I'll show you why. But this game was played Green Bay Packers, the San Francisco 49ers. Kezar Stadium. Oh my! Wow. December 13th, 1959. Final game of the 59 season for both teams. Both teams finished 7-5. So let's go. Let's take a look right at each team's schedule, and I'll show you why. We'll start off with the Packers schedule here. Now, they were very, very streaky. Now, just once again, bear with me. I know it was just preseason. I get it. I know, but I'm an old fart, so just humor me. Packers were streaky. Okay, so if you include their final 2 preseason games, they won the first 3 games of the season. So they won 5 games in a row. Final 2 preseason. First 3 of the regular season. Then they lost 5 in a row. Then they won their final 4. They finished 7-5. They were 1-10-1 the year before. Who would have thunk it? Lo and behold, some guy by the name of Vince Lombardi comes along and he whips the Packers and makes them a winner. Hard to believe, When both these teams faced each other in the 3rd week of the season, it was obviously, as you can see right here, very, very close game. And I'm going to show you a little bit more in just a second with the 49ers. But at this juncture of the season, the Packers won the 3rd game of the season. Packers were 3-0. After 3 weeks, there was only 12 teams in the league. But the Packers were the only team that were undefeated at 3-0. The rest of the league had at least 1 loss. Then the Packers would fall to 3-5 and almost basically pretty much take themselves out of contention to win their conference and have a chance at hosting the championship game. Then they would, as I said, win the final. Spoiler alert here, I do apologize, but they would actually whoop up on the 49ers here, 36-14. So this was a very, and the Green Bay Press Gazette, a little article there where it shows that there's going to be a whole bunch of people at one of the Green Bay airports waiting for the Packers to arrive to cheer on their team, because the Packers hadn't been to the championship game since 44. They won that one 14-7 over the Giants, but since then 44 they had not much to cheer about. From 1929 to 1944, they were a good team. A lot of championships. This is their first taste of some success in a long, long time. So this was this is the stepping stone for the Packers. Obviously, much better things were to come. But for the 49ers, unfortunately, they started, as we see here, 6-1. They were leading the Western Conference at 6-1, and they finished 7-5. Huge disappointment. It started 6-1, and the only game that they lost was that 1-point loss in City Stadium in Green Bay. It was on December, October 11th, basically 2 months prior to this game here. They lost a 1-point game to the Packers, but they were still, after they beat the Rams 24-16 in Memorial Coliseum on November 8th, and they were 6-1. All are at the top. The conference was theirs, but they had, as we see here, they had a very tough schedule. The Bears, they lost to the Bears. All of a sudden, their offense just started sputtering. I mean, here where they were scoring 24, 33, 20, 34, 20, 34, 20, where they were scoring points here, all of a sudden, 3, 14, 21, 14. And then, of course, they as we're here, when they were beating teams, gave up 16.7, 17, 13. They had a shutout, 14.17. But all of a sudden, their defense, their offense went MIA, and their defense gave up 45 here, 34 there, 36 there. So they lost 4 of their final 5, and they wound up in third place. They were all alone at the top at 6-1. They went from 6-1 to 7-5. So have to be considered somewhat of a rather disappointment. What they did, it was a gauntlet here. I mean, the Bears finished 8-4. Then they had to play the Colts twice, who won the championship 1959, 31-16 over the Giants. They had to play the Browns, who were, newsflash, were always a good team. And then they played the Green Bay Packers here. So, I mean, they had a tough schedule, very, very tough schedule. But, so that's where you could certainly say was kind of disappointing for the 49ers at 6-1. Actually, in 57, if we go back 2 years, I mean, once again, they could have hosted the championship game, but they wound up with a tied. And one of the biggest collapses, basically, in a football game, pretty much bar none, because we're going back in the day. See, unlike today where you can score 13 touchdowns in the final minute of a football game, back then it was a little more difficult to do stuff like that. I mean, considering, I don't remember when it was, but when the Bills scored, Josh Allen, I think, ran into the end zone, put the Bills up in the playoff game with 13 seconds to go in the game. The Bills were up by 3, gave Patrick Mahomes completed two passes, and they kicked the game-tying field goal in like 13 seconds. So it wasn't like that back then. It was kind of difficult to move the ball. But every odd season, the Western Conference hosted the championship, and the San Fran hung on to their first place lead. Right, they would have hosted the championship. Well, 2 years prior, they had a playoff game against the Detroit Lions. They were at home, and they would have hosted the championship game. But a huge collapse here. They lost 31-27, and the game was played at Kezar Stadium. They were winning. They were winning 24-7 at halftime. They were up 27-7. And then the Lions rattled off 24 points. 27-7, they were up, halfway through the third quarter or so. They were up by 20 points. And you're up by 20 points, 1959. That's a large lead. That's a big lead. And they couldn't score another point after that. And the Lions came roaring back, and went at 31-27. So the Lions won this playoff game, would host the championship game, and would annihilate the Browns 59-14 in the championship game. So the 49ers had a couple titles possibly in their hands, and they let them slip away. So back here, so this game here obviously was played, 49ers next season, there we go, was played at Kezar Stadium. My good boy. Want to talk a little football, pal? My buddy Randy's here. So let's go and let's good old Kezar Stadium. My first and basically only experience with Kezar Stadium was 1970. Was the first year I remember watching pro football. I do remember watching the NFC Championship game at Kezar Stadium. The Cowboys would win 17-10. That was the final game ever because the next season, the 49ers moved into Candlestick Park. So that was the only game I ever remember. Well, I remember watching it on TV. It's Kezar Stadium. It was the 1970 championship game. So let's see here. Talk a little bit about good old Kezar Stadium. Interesting stadium. Really, really, show you some pictures. Just some very, very interesting here. 1920, Jack Spaulding proposed an athletic stadium for San Francisco, seating 50,000 people. That's a big stadium back then. Let me tell you what. There were other stadiums that were bigger, but this one, 50,000. Woo. And you figure, especially since, a lot of the athletics, the sports and all and everything, all out east. They get a 50,000 seat stadium. Many business leaders in the city backed them, as it would keep San Francisco level with other cities with large stadiums. Areas under consideration for the stadium were 7th and Harrison Streets, Ocean Shore, and Central Park grounds. But where it gets its name from, 1922, the San Francisco Park Commission accepted a $100,000 gift from the estate of Mary Kezar to build a memorial in honor of her mother and uncles, who were pioneers in the area. Wow. Wow. After the city and county of San Francisco appropriated an additional $200,000, the stadium was built in a year. $300,000 built in Kezar Stadium. Dedication ceremonies were on May 2nd, 1925, and featured a 2-mile foot race between two people of Finland, two of the great runners of the era. A little over a month later, the new stadium hosted the U.S. Outdoor Track and Field Championships. The stadium had many uses in the 30s. In addition to track and field competitions, Kezar Stadium hosted motorcycle racing, auto racing, rugby, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, boxing, cricket, and football. Holy cow. Wow, what didn't it do, huh? High school football, college football, and in professional football. Kezar Stadium was the first home of the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders, as well as many NFL Hall of Famers, historical NFL games, and the first alley-oop. The Raiders played at Kezar Stadium for their first 4 home games in 1960 and at Candlestick Park during the remainder of their first 2 seasons. Kezar had a poor reputation among NFL players. In his 1987 memoir, Hall of Fame defensive tackle Art Donovan recalls the look of dread worn by visiting teams arriving at the stadium, owing it to its inadequate dressing rooms, long, dusty tunnel to the field, shredded turf that was a byproduct of rain and overuse, and goddamn seagulls that would arrive in the fourth quarter and start shitting on you like they were aiming. 49ers played the final game at Kezar Stadium early 1971, losing the 1970 NFC Championship game to the Cowboys 17-10 on January 3rd. 49ers moved to the more modern and accessible Candlestick Park from 1960, which was around from 1960 to 2015. And they moved in there in the 1971 season and played there through 2013. Kezar Stadium was also home field to the San Francisco Stingrays, women's professional football team. And you see Dirty Harry, several scenes from there were there, concerts were there. Then there was demolition and reconstruction. Now, the one nice thing I do like about that is they did rebuild it. It's not like a bunch of row homes and a Dollar Tree or a pizza parlor and a nail salon. It just they knocked it down, obviously, and whoops, there we go. Right, Kezar Stadium in October. Right, so it's nothing compared to what it was, but you see that it's got a beautiful football field. This is I'll show you this in a second, but the track, absolutely green, beautiful grass. There still are some trees in the area. They didn't kill everything, right? And obviously football games are being played there, and you got the stands on both sides, so it's absolutely beautiful. They knock it down. If it need to be knocked down, it has to be, but they rebuilt it in the area, and it's still some place where people can go play. And it looks beautiful. Absolutely a fantastic job. But here, right, the replica arch at Kezar Stadium. You'll get a chance to see that. So it's not the original one, but so how cool is that, right? I mean, they did a fantastic job. They did a renovation. Kezar Stadium was closed for renovations from 2014 until 2015. So they renovated it after they knocked it down, rebuilt it. The $3.2 million renovation included new entry walking, paving, upgraded sound system, new perimeter walkways and curbs, installation of new Mondo running track surface, striping for 9 42-inch lanes. In addition, 1,000 historic candlestick park seats were installed for the public to enjoy. How cool is that? So, it's just fantastic. Out here, Bob St. Clair, plaque of NFL Hall of Famer Bob St. Clair at Kezar Stadium. He played in this game. He was like, I don't know how tall he was. He was like 6'7", 6'8", Hall of Fame offensive lineman. Really, really good. Great player. Here's a picture here. Let's just do this one. I got some other pictures to show you. Kezar Stadium in 1955. Yeah. But you see it, it's just built into, right into the city there. Absolutely, beautiful. To me, it ain't nothing like those old time stadiums. So let's got some pictures here to show you the old Kezar Stadium, and it was just, it was a little odd, We're going to show you. All right, what do we got here? Okay, here we go. All right. As you can see here, right? I mean, it's just odd. Move this over here. Now you see, there we go. Now you got the bowl, the nice, very, right? The bowl all the way around, and all of a sudden it's like here, there's like very little down here. But you'll notice over here how high it is all the way around, it's all the same height. And then over here, right, this is where the broadcasters are at, the sports writers and all that stuff and everything. But then over here, you see how all of a sudden it just gets, how low it gets, how high it is over here, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what happened to the rest of the stadium? Well, I Googled it. I knew there was a reason. I didn't happen to know, but look here. All right. Well, I'm reading this, but as you look at the picture, enjoy the picture. I'm going to read this. Kezar Stadium had an odd, uneven, single-tiered bowl shape, primarily because its southern side was built too close to Lincoln Street. So this must be Lincoln Street right here. And that's what it was. That's the way the stadiums were back then. You had streets this way, and you basically had to take a stadium and boom, put it in between all the streets. This tight confined location forced the stands on that side to be much lower and shallower than the rest of the stadium, restricting seating, particularly between the goal lines. Now, I'll show you. I mean, I'm going to read something here, which is a bit odd, but we'll look at the picture and it'll start making some sense. The southern edge of the stadium was constrained by its proximity to Lincoln Street. So I guess this has got to be it right here. Lincoln Street. Because of this constraint, some sections of the south side were only 18 rows high compared to a much deeper bowl elsewhere. So over here, this is only 18 rows right here. Guess that's what they're talking about. I mean, as you can see, there's obviously many more rows here compared to over here. That is what AI says. All right. A 6-lane track was placed between the stands and the field, which further pushed the seating farther away in a regular oval bowl or sausage shape. So, see what I'm saying? So they have a track here, right? The oval track going around, which obviously pushed these seats back even farther. Now, if this was just like this track wasn't here, right? They could have brought this closer to the field, and maybe they could have had, maybe if they brought, if they were able to do away with the track around the field and make this all grass, they possibly could have shifted everything over this way, and it would allow them maybe to bring the seating in maybe a little farther, and maybe they could have had the entire thing as a bowl, at least on this side over here. But because of what they're saying, the track that goes around the field, I push it out even farther, closer to the street. And then, which is odd, after being demolished in 1989 following earthquake damage, the stadium was rebuilt to a smaller, more uniform 10,000-seat configuration in the 1990s. Now, that is the 10,000 seats that I showed you, right? How they rebuilt it. So I got maybe it was like 5,000 seats on the one side and 5,000 on the other. But really, they did a fantastic job. Does this show it? Oh, there. Okay. This is odd. Poor visibility. The combination of the track surrounding the field and the lopsided stands meant that only about 17,000 of the 59,000 seats, so about 17,000 out of maybe 60,000 seats, were actually located between the goal lines. So think of that. Only 17,000 between the goal lines. So what if the goal line was, looks like set up for soccer maybe. Looking maybe here, unless there's some uprights here that I'm missing. But you figure right between here. So, I guess whatever the goal line would have been. So maybe about here to about here. There's only like 17,000 fans. This, once again, this is what AI says. Okay. The rest of the 42,000 was all located back here. And I guess, there's a decent amount of people over here and some people here and then some people over here. But a majority of the people, I guess the goal lines was, and this is where Art Donovan talks about. This is the only, both teams got to walk out here, out this way. It's not like one team can go out here or one team can go out here. It's like there's there, right? But so 42,000 of the seats were located behind the goal lines compared to 17,000. Once again, this is what AI says. So, not many people could sit here, and I guess there was a decent amount of people sitting here, but 42,000 from like all the way around here. And then I guess from the goal line was about here. Another additional, however many thousand was sitting back over here. So very, very odd. Oh wait, up. You apologize. I stopped sharing. Show the pictures once again here. There we go. So that's that. I mean, whoops. Here's obviously what looks like now, right? Yeah, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, I have 5,000 on each side. There's the arch over here that they were talking about, and just some aerial views, right? But you can see right here, right? I mean, I don't. Doesn't say what game this was, but obviously it was a football game. But you see all the people sitting here, right? And then see how small the amount of people sitting there. Here we go. Here's old school here, boy. Historical photos from the 49ers played in the heart of San Francisco. So, right, obviously playing the Browns here. Man, all right. I showed this picture. This is when this could have been from this game here. Well, wait. No, because let me see here. Look like they have a G on the side of the helmet, so this couldn't be from this game because the Packers playing in this game here had no insignia on the side of the helmet, so this had to be from 61 on. But whoops. But you can see, right? They're going to be doing. Nope. It's from the end zone here. How cool a shot is this? Now, this is looking into the end. And look at it. It's like it's just a sea of people there. But I mean, how cool is this? Packers backed up from their own 1 yard line. I mean, what a great shot! Unbelievable, great shot. Here's. I mean, you're about as close to a huddle as you're going to get right here. This is where the Packers huddled up. Yes, this is from that game. So Packers had insignia or whatever, decals on the side of their helmet starting in 1961. So in 59 and 60, they had nothing. So this can't be this game. But I mean, they're back of their end zone, right? This is when they used to huddle up 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And here you got this right here. I mean, look at this. I don't know if this is, maybe there was a camera, I guess maybe on the goal post or the crossbar maybe. I mean, just how cool a picture is that, huh? But the old Kezar Stadium, absolutely, This was the championship game, I'm thinking right here. Possibly 49ers and the Cowboys, the final game ever played at Kezar Stadium in the 1970 championship game. So, but just a beautiful, they don't make them like that anymore. I'll tell you what. But so we got a lot of reading to do here. I'm going to start off here with the San Francisco Examiner, December 14th, 1959 edition. All right, where are we at here? Okay. Bam! Packers tame 49ers 36-14. We got here. C.R. Roberts loses the ball in midair on Packers 24 to Whitman. Green Bay defender rambled 45 yards with pigskin until down on the 49er 31 late in the third. This is one of those things. And they were going in for a score, possibly. Fumbles the ball. Now the Packer ball the other way. Possibly the Packers scored on that. So CR in more heroic pose during the first period as he straight arms Packer John Simak en route to a touchdown. All right, let's see. So at the end, obviously, at the end of the season, both these teams finished at 7-5. We're both in third place. JD gets his 1,000 yards in rushing. So back then, in 12 games, mind you, got 1,000 yards rushing. Very difficult to do. The San Francisco 49ers rendered an agonizing playback on their entire season during 2 painfully chilly hours here this afternoon. Even as they had done over the 12-week campaign, they came in like lions and went out like lambs. It was almost as if they were reviewing the year for 55,997 getaway day fans as they boomed to 2 quick touchdowns and then played accordion and went down in the season's finale before a Green Bay Packer onslaught, 36-14. The result of what has to be regarded the biggest overlay of the year. The 49ers implicably were installed 5-point favorites, left a sour taste on what had otherwise been regarded a highly successful first year under coach Red Hickey. 49ers never were in the hunt after C.R. Roberts, the new fullback, had fled 46 yards to a touchdown, and hardworking J.D. Smith had covered 10 for another. Hold on a second, I got to move my legs here. Sharp-throwing Bart Starr, sticky-fingered Boyd Dowler, Max McGee, and Gary Knefel. Now, this trio right here had a very good season, and a lot of people think, like sometimes, well, especially me, with the Packers, Boyd Dowler and Max McGee, but Gary Knefel is very good. Highly underrated. And I believe he, listening to him, I think he roomed with Bart Starr for many years, if I'm not mistaken. Hard-running Lou Carpenter and Paul Hornung combined to methodically hammer the final nail in this coffin. What had been a smart 14-0 San Francisco lead was quickly smothered, and the Packers rolled from a 14-14 intermission deadlock to hand the one-time title hopefuls their 4th loss in their last 5 starts. As a result, the 49ers, who once held a plush 2-game lead over the Western Conference field, because they were 6-1, and I think the closest opponent at the time was the Colts, who were 4-3. So they had a 2-game lead, 7 games into the season in a 12-game schedule, and they wound up 2 games behind. They had a 2-game lead, wound up 2 games behind. Wow. Both teams were yanked down to 3rd place. Both finished with a 7-5 records, enabling the Chicago Bears to take 2nd place in the final standings behind the champion Baltimore Colts. With the defeat, the San Franciscans also lost out on the playoff loot. That too went to the Bears. The lone redeeming feature of the otherwise sorry showing for the 49er followers was the work of the striving Smith, who scratched and scrambled hard to become only the 7th man in NFL history to accumulate 1,000 rushing yards in one season. The one-time Chicago Bear discard alone among the 49ers to maintain his fire and efficiency throughout, rolled for 106 yards on 18 carries, which gave him a total of 1,036 yards for his first full season on offense. But this feat and a few others were a little succor to the 49er faithful, who had to come to the stadium hopeful of witnessing the building of an optimistic springboard to 1960. Even the San Francisco defense, which had performed so capably through most of the season, fell flat as the Greenies from Wisconsin rolled for 479 yards while whipping the '49ers for the 3rd time and concluding the club's best year since 1944, when they won the championship. Certainly, there should have been no favoritism slanted toward the 49ers after the Packers whipped them in exhibition 24-17, and again at Green Bay, where the 21-20 score wasn't in keeping with the margin of superiority. Even though Y.A. Tittle was to return and go the entire distance this fateful afternoon, there was no rhyme or reason for installing the crippled 49ers as the choice over the smartly handled Packers. At best, it should have been regarded as a toss-up, and in light of today's developments, even that rating would have looked ridiculous. The 49ers didn't belong on the same field with Green Bay once the real racing began. The Packers squared matters before the intermission on the first of 3 Horning touchdowns and a deadly start 22-yard scoring pass to end Gary Knafelk. And they continued on the power, a safety, and 2 more TDs in the third period. The sheen on a classy performance ultimately was provided with a 5th 6-pointer in the final canto. Starr, the ex-Alabama man, who had come along late in the season to steer Green Bay out of the mire of a 5-game losing streak, was brilliant as he riddled the 49er defense for 20 completions in 25 attempts. Now, that's 80% completion percentage. That is fantastic back in 1959. He had 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carpenter, the slashing Arkansan, who was called upon to fill in at fullback for the ailing Jimmy Taylor, did an even better job here than he did at Green Bay under similar circumstances. Running behind a hard-blocking line, Carpenter ripped the 49er forwards for 113 yards and 16 tries. The blonde Horning displayed tremendous versatility. He drove for touchdowns from 13, 3, and 2 yards and ran 15 times for 83 yards, booted 4 conversions, caught 2 passes, and did some of the kicking off for the Packers. What help Starr needed on the receiving end was masterfully provided by the big rookie, Boyd Dowler, Max McGee, and Gary Knafelk, who among them caught 15 of Bart Starr's whips for 223 yards. It was a sad wind-up for Tittle, even though the old bald eagle withstood a severe battering from people like Bill Forrester to complete 13 of his 22 passes. Yet Y.A. Tittle was on his way down more often than not from the red-dogging tactics of people like Forrester, Henry Jordan, and Tom Bettis on almost every attempt. 49er blocking fell away to its miserable worst after the early scoring forays, and everything seemed to follow a similar course. Even Roberts, the 215-pound former USC Trojan, went top to bottom in this one. With the old pro Joe Perry sitting this one out, Roberts took over at full. I guess that's fullback, and made a spectacular debut. The first time he carried the ball as a 49er, he ran the middle for 13 yards. Going. The next time he burst through a big hole at right guard, fought off 1 tackle, and straight-armed John Simak out of existence at the Packer 10. There was a thunderous roar as he ripped into the end zone 46 yards from the starting point. Wow. However, the rangy newcomer was later to become as much a GOAT as he had been a hero. That was in the third period when the 49ers were charging, and a touchdown that would have pulled them up to within 10 points of the Packers was in the offing. The 49ers were on the Green Bay 21, and Roberts was on his way around the left end with some daylight ahead. 1 minute he had the ball, the next he didn't. Somehow it had come loose from his grasp without his being hit. And the first thing anyone knew, Jesse Whitman, the Packer defensive back, had picked the ball off in midair and was heading the other way. Smith didn't catch up with Jesse until 45 yards later at the San Francisco 31, and the Packers went on from there to score and put an end to any thoughts of a belated San Francisco rally. CR's mishap, however, couldn't be fingered as the one which undid the 49ers. It was only one in a series of mishaps, mostly of the Green Bay making, which led to the 49ers' downfall. The end came with shocking suddenness. Not too long after Smith had built the San Francisco advantage to 14-0 with a 10-yard blast at the tail end of an 80-yard drive featuring a Tittle to Hugh McElhenny pass and run spanning the middle 40. It looked like a 49er day at the stage of the game, but almost simultaneously with the announcement that the Bears had defeated Detroit, which meant that San Francisco could earn no more than a share of second place, the day was to become night. Starr was smack on the button with 3 passes amounting to 50 yards, and the Packers advanced 78 yards in 8 plays for their first TD, with Horning scoring it on an option run. Bart started machine gunning again late in the second quarter, and Green Bay covered 62 yards in 6 maneuvers. The Packers played the clock cleverly with times out and sideline plays until Starr could whip one down the middle to Knefel, 22 yards away in the end zone. With the second of Horning's conversions, 14 seconds from the rest period, San Francisco lead had disappeared into thin air. So only San Francisco had the lead 14-7. Packers tied it up, 14 seconds left to go. Seven minutes and 5 seconds were all the Packers needed in the third quarter to resolve the issue. The stage was set when Lenny Lyles could get no more than a 13-yard return on the second half kickoff, and a penalty for illegal use of the hands showed the 49ers back to the San Francisco 7-yard line. Tittle tried to get the club out of the hole with a third down pass call. It backfired. Before YA could take as many as 4 backward steps, the 239-pound Forrester red dog YA with no opposition and pinned the belabored quarterback in the end zone for a tie-breaking safety. And that was 16-14 now. 49ers really came apart at the seams with that one, and a free kick from the 20 by Tommy Davis. Carpenter took a pitch out, bounced off Leo Namalini, and raised 26 yards from the Green Bay 26. Horning went the opposite direction on an option, turned the corner, and rambled 38 yards before Dave Baker could shove him out of bounds at the San Francisco 2. 2 plays later, the one-time Notre Dame All-American plowed over from the 3 behind Jerry Kramer's block, which eliminated Jerry Mertens. The next Packer 6-pointer was even easier. Tittle got the rush. Well, then again, when didn't he, I guess? On another pass attempt, and John Simak raced in to take it away at the 49 39 before it could reach the intended receiver, Hugh McElhenny. Simak rushed back to the San Francisco 18, detouring Bob St. Clair's grasp en route, and a couple of downs later, Starr fired over the middle to 6'5" Boyd Dowler, a bucket-handed Coloradoan. Dowler made a sliding catch on the 10-yard toss in front of Mertens just inside the end zone, and Horning converted to give the Packers their 16th point of the half against the reeling 49ers. It didn't help any when McElhenny, who shared 49er receiving honors with Billy Wilson, was knocked colder than a frozen herring after picking up 17 on one of Tittle's passes. Mack managed to return later, but he wasn't the same. In any event, the 49ers made a strong retaliatory bid only to have Roberts' play giveaway. Packers wasted no time cashing in. The 31 yards were covered in 7 rushing plays. On the last one, 2 downs into the final quarter, Abe Woodson tried to knock heads with Horning as the Packer back came booming through left tackle from the 3-yard line. Poor old Abe must have thought it was night and the stars were out. He was about as resisting as a pin would be against a bowling ball when he met with a 215-pound Horning. There was a sarcastic tone to the cheers which attended St. Clair's deflecting of Horning's conversion attempt. The stadium announcer couldn't have picked a worse time to begin the traditional thank you to the fans, an announcement with, "Today marks the end of the 49ers season." The response before he could finish with, "And the management wishes to thank you for your support," was a concerted hurrah. There was one more happening of note before the windup. That came in the middle of the 49er march. Tittle was heading earthward again after getting away a pass, and a big Forrester intercepted. R.C. Owens, who had been the recipient, nailed the rumbling linebacker from behind after he'd gone 5 yards and the ball squirted loose. There were a couple of juggling acts before John Thomas recaptured the elusive hide for the 49ers. The threat was to come a cropper. Anyway, when Tittle's pass to McElhaney fell inches short of a first down on the Green Bay 10. Packers were in process of grinding up the 49ers in small chunks when the game ended at the San Francisco 15. Besides placing bonus money and pride, the 49ers may well have lost something more today. Hickey assuredly would have been a shoo-in for pre-coach of the year honors had the 49ers made a respectable showing. No, shoo-in? How about some guy by the name of Vince Lombardi took them from 1 to 10 and 1 to 7 and 5? But now it's doubtful they'll hand the wreath to the scrappy 49er coach. Nope. More than likely, Green Bay's freshman coach, whose cleverly concocted attack played no small part in the outcome, has the inside track. Efficient as was Hickey's work, it'll be difficult to argue against the 2 losses Vince Lombardi pinned on the 49ers. Green Bay, if anything, was taken even less lightly than San Francisco in the preseason polls. Here's all the stats here. I mean, just good. I mean, you can see Starr had a wonderful game. 20 completion by him. These are his 3 top receivers right here. Dowler caught 6, Knaffel caught 5, McGee caught 4. I mean, man, spreading it around to the 3 receivers. Yeah. Tittle completed some, R.C. Owens is big threat. Only caught 1 pass for 2 yards. I mean, you see first downs rushing. The Packers had 17 rushing first downs, 27. 479 yards of offense to the San Francisco. 279. Packers had 230 yards rushing. Wow. Here's the starting lineups over here. I mean, good. Taylor was in there, but he was ailing. Carpenter had 113. Horning had 83. So between these 2 guys and 31 carries, they had like almost 200 yards rushing. And where are we at here? The 49ers only had 2 guys run the ball. Tittle had 1. Probably scrambled for his life. But, all right, so that's the San Francisco Examiner. Let's go to the Oakland Tribune. Ooh, the Oakland Tribune. December 14th, 1959 version of or edition of the Oakland Tribune. 49ers fell apart. Hickey admits. Loss to the Packers cost them money. Here's a good picture right here, right? Good picture. J.D. Smith plows through the center of the line for a 14-yard gain in the 3rd quarter. Here's Bob St. Clair. He's the one with the plaque. Right? Yeah, he's tall. See the long legs there. He's tall. He's like 6'8", 6'9", something like that. Tall. It was like throwing money out the window. The way the 49ers let the Green Bay Packers pull them out of 2nd place in the National League's Western Conference with a 36-14 thrashing. And a thrashing it was in Kezar Stadium yesterday after the 49ers lost their grip on an early 14-point lead and never posted a serious threat for the final 3 quarters. Now the Bears at 8-4 inherit a full share of second place money, estimated to be worth $500 to $600 per man. And back then, that's a nice chunk of money. While the 49ers, who are at 7-5, will have to wait another year at least. For the Packers, the victory marked the first time they had ever taken both games on the coast. They beat the Rams 38-20 last week, so it was the first time. It was the first time in the 50s, right, that did. Because the Packers usually what they did was they finished the season on the coast, playing the Rams and the 49ers. Now, the 49ers were originally in the All-American Football Conference. So for them, their first year in the league was 1950. So from 1950 to 1958, I guess the Packers, although I didn't look, maybe they played the final two games of the season on the West Coast, or maybe they, or be playing both the teams on the West Coast, the Rams and the 49ers. So it had to be like at least the final. The past 9 years, the Packers did not beat the Rams and the 49ers on the West Coast in the same season. This was the first time since 1950. For the 49ers, it marked the first time that they had ever lost a final regularly scheduled game of any season. Wow. And only the second time since regular season game. They lost the final game of the 1957 season in that playoff game, which I showed you. And only the second time since joining the NFL in 1950 had they lost both games to Green Bay. Also on this, the record this year was an exhibition loss to the Packers, so they lost 3 times to the Packers this year. Most ejected man in the organization was Coach Howard Red Hickey, as he had to face newsmen, a loser for the 4th time in the past 5 games after his team won 6 of its first 7. Only the beating his club suffered in Baltimore brought more noticeable mental suffering to the freshman coach, who did a remarkable job with a badly battered and physically weak team. We kind of fell apart out there, and I didn't expect that, he summarized. Actually, the manner in which the 49ers lost this one was reminiscent of the way they dropped that playoff game with Detroit in 1957, only instead of the decline and eventual fall starting after halftime of that game. It began with only this one falling apart began with only 11:32 played in the game. Up to that time, the 49ers had the ball twice and scored 2 touchdowns with a revitalized ground attack. But from that point on, the 49ers got into Green Bay territory only once to lose the ball on downs on the 20. Meanwhile, the Packers took complete control of the 49er line, sent linebackers sprawling with sharp blocks, and poured elusive pass receivers through a wide-open secondary. We got those 2 quick ones, and I guess some of the fellows thought it was going to be easy, said Hickey. Then we got the devil kicked out of us. While desiring to take nothing away from Green Bay for the manner in which it played, Hickey still observed, either they have the best offensive line in the league or we have the worst defensive line. We sure made an all-pro quarterback out of Bart Starr this time. You can't give him all day to pass, and our pass rushers didn't have it. Without the usual big rush the 49ers have been able to muster in the past, Starr completed 20 out of 25 passes he threw for 249 yards, setting a new high mark for percentage of completions for any passer against the 49ers. Starr's performance and that of his teammates took most of the luster off 2 49er events. Billy Wilson caught 5 Wyatt Tittle passes to run his lifetime total to 404, second only to the 489 of all-time leader Don Hudson. This year, the 9-year 49er vet passed Pete Fijos of 373 of the Philadelphia and Tom Fears, who had 400 of the Los Angeles in these standings. J.D. Smith, getting better as a ball carrier with each game, picked up 166 yards rushing to give him a year's total 1,036. Only veteran Joe Perry has gained more, 1,049 as a 49er in a season. And Smith going over 1,000 yards is only the 6th man in NFL history to do so. The other article said it was the 7th, so I don't know. But 2 of them were 49ers. You see, Joe Perry and J.D. Smith. The 49ers, they were able to, they've had offense. It's just sometimes their defense was it's not very good. These two performances plus newfound running strength from C.R. Roberts making his debut at fullback were about the only bright spots in the most disappointing performance by the 49ers this year. What made it particularly discouraging to the 55,997 fans in Kezar, many of whom wound up the afternoon with a chorus of boos, was the fact that Green Bay just isn't that good. Had it been Baltimore, the result could be expected, but it wasn't, and the 49ers should have done much better despite the impressive job Coach Vince, here's Gary Knafel, gets a past 49 defender Eddie Dove to snag a touchdown pass in the second quarter of yesterday's game. The 22-yard toss came from quarterback Bart Starr, and a successful conversion tied it at 14-all. An impressive job, Coach Vince Lombardi and his staff have done with the Packers. Never once did they show signs of folding despite those two quick TDs. And when the 49ers indicated that they were slackening off a bit, the Packers were alert enough to take advantage of it. And once they started rolling, the 49ers could never get them stopped. Where the defensive team has been the backbone of the club all year, this time it fell back before a wave of blockers. Two elusive and powerful runners, Paul Hornung and Lou Carpenter, and stars throws to Boyd Dowler, Gary Knafel, and Max McGee left virtually uncovered all day. They picked up 479 yards running and passing, 200 more than the 49ers did. An indication of the way in which the 49ers met the Packer powerful came on the final touchdown early in the fourth quarter. Hornung from 2 yards out came charging around left end. He was met head-on at the line of scrimmage by Abe Woodson. Earlier in the year, one of the toughest tacklers in the league. When Hornung hit Woodson, the latter bounced backwards, and Hornung just dove over him into the end zone. Another time, Woodson had McGee in a tackle, spinning him around. Suddenly, he lost his grip, and the Packer end wound up with a 44-yard gain. Jerry Mertens caught him from behind to prevent a touchdown. But Woodson wasn't the only man in the club guilty of bad tackling. Every defender was. In fact, Hickey termed the efforts to bring down Packer runners as terrible. Just as the 49er defense really collapsed for the first time, so did the protection of the passer. Tittle was thrown for a total of 36 yards loss. At one time, this breakdown cost the 49ers a safety, set back to their own 6 by a penalty on the second half kickoff. The 49ers got it out to the 10 in 2 plays. And then Tittle was caught by unmolested Bill Forrester, red dogging from his linebacker spot and buried in the end zone. Some of the trouble could be traced to Roberts, who apparently was taking the wrong man on some blocking assignments, but some of the red doggers should never have gotten past the line of scrimmage. On one big Packer rush, Tittle was trying to get the ball off when his arm was hit by Dan Curry. The deflected ball was intercepted by Simak and turned into a touchdown in 4 plays. Later, Tittle was badly rushed and Forrester intercepted his pass, but this time Bill got into trouble when he tried to lateral. The ball bounced crazily back toward the 49ers, and John Thomas, a tackle, finally recovered. The few bright spots in the 49er offense, which has been practically non-existent for 5 weeks or since the second game with the Rams in Los Angeles, came in the opening period. After forcing the Packers to punt, the 49ers had the ball on their own 26. It took just 5 plays, including an incompletion on the only pass Tittle threw to score. First, Smith went roaming around left end for 14, and then Roberts found a big hole for 13 on a draw up the middle. After a 1-yard gain by Smith and the incompletion, the ball was on the Packer 46. Once again, Tittle sent Roberts up the middle on the draw. Here we go. Whoa, all the way. And 6 yards past the line of scrimmage, he was in the open. As Roberts sped down the right sideline, Simak made a vain effort to shove him out of bounds. But a powerful straight arm from the former USC runner flipped Simak completely over in the air, and Roberts was home free. While not noticeable at the time, the 49er defense started to fall apart immediately after this as the Packers moved to the 49ers 17 before Horning missed a field goal. Right back came the 49ers, however, a 40-yard run by Hugh McElhenney with a pass into the flat being the big play in the 80-yard drive. Just as he caught the ball, McElhenney was grabbed by Emlyn Tunnell and Curry, but neither could hang on and Hugh was away. While Hugh was pulled down from behind in the Packer 28, Smith continued his pounding at the line. Tittle hit Wilson with one pass, and then J.D. fought his way over from the 10 yards out. It all seemed so simple for the 49ers up to that point, but it was simpler from there on out for the Packers. First, it was a 78-yard drive in 9 plays, and then 62 yards in 6 plays to tie it up just before halftime. That's when they scored 14 seconds left to go before the half to make it 14-14 heading into halftime. And after intermission came the safety, a 66-yard drive in 4 plays and another of 18 after the Simak interception to run the Packer margin to 30-14. And remember, 30-14 at 16 points. Unlike today, 16-point lead is only 2 scores. Back then, it was 3 scores. All this occurred in just 7:05 of the third quarter. The 31-yard drive in 9 plays that wound up the scoring just into the fourth period was anticlimactic, although involving one of the weirdest plays of the day. Roberts, powering around left end, suddenly lost the ball, and Jesse Whitman picked it out of the air on the Packer 24. He was finally down by Smith on the 49-31 after a 45-yard run, but it was only postponed temporarily. It only temporarily postponed the final Packer score. All that was left for the 49ers after this demonstration was the annual postseason party, which could wind up the 49er career of several men. For Hickey is determined to continue his rebuilding job with the 49ers and must find a number of new faces to go with the promising rookies he added to the squad this year. While 7-5 is much better than anyone hoped at the start, it is not good enough to win in pro football, as Hickey is well aware. Improvement could come next year. Always a year of hope for 49er fans. All right. And then we got some, what do we got here? The Green Bay Press Gazette. I'm going to go like to page 1 because they got some stuff they're talking about, like meeting the team at the airport and all. You know, the fans are over the moon of Vince Lombardi and their 1959 Green Bay Packers. So let's go to the December 14th, 1959 edition of the Green Bay Press Gazette here. Welcome home for football heroes tonight. Older readers will remember the once popular song, Our Boys Will Shine Tonight, and shortly after 7:30, thousands of persons are expected to flood Austin Straubel Field to make the old song come alive. The Green Bay Packers, proud possessors of a 7-5 record, best since 1945, will be met by the Minutemen and enthusiastic Packer fans. The Press Gazette news department set up a welcoming of its own over the weekend. Contacted about the Packers' success were the coaches and dignitaries from around the country. What they think of the Green Bay resurgence, what they said is featured elsewhere on this page, and the homecoming proceedings will be carried tonight on WJPJ starting at 7:45. All right, so here we go. Packers move toward top, win wins praises across the land. Hail to the Green Bay Packers. That briefly and to the point was the theme of statements today by four former coaches of the team, a National Football League official, and two coaches, city and county government leaders, and businesses and labor organization officials. The statements were obtained by the Press Gazette in connection with the homecoming celebration for the team tonight at Austin Straubel Field. The homecoming will begin at 7:15 to warm up for the arrival of the Packer party at 7:55. All of the statements expressed directly or implied that the Packers this season, their best in victory since 1944, again a professional league power with spirit and the will to win, their dominant qualities. Among those who saw this year's 7-5 record as an indication of a bright future for the team was the man who coached the team to all of its 6 world championships. It makes me feel good, and I'm especially happy for the fans back there. That was Curly Lambeau's reaction to the Packers' miracle season of 1959. He was reached via telephone in the Los Angeles Coliseum press box just before the Ram-Colt game Saturday afternoon. The founder of the Packers and their head coach for 30 years watched the Bays with great interest this year, pointing out, I saw the 3 games in Green Bay, one in Milwaukee and one in Los Angeles, and they showed me plenty. I said after the opener when they beat the Bears that Green Bay would be hard to beat if they kept on playing like that. They have continued to play real hard all the way. The team and coaching staff should be complimented, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to congratulate them. Reminded that a victory over the 49ers would give the Packers their first above 500 season since 1947 when he was coaching. Lambeau hammered, that's good and more power to them. I hope they get into the championship next year. It's like he had a crystal ball. It was in 1960. They did get to the championship. However, they would lose to the Philadelphia Eagles 17-13. But it's been a long time. But the fans at home really have stuck with them. They certainly are loyal. Lambeau resigned after the 1949 season and later coached the Chicago Cardinals, Washington Redskins, and the College All-Stars. He is spending the winter at Palm Springs, California. I'll be anxious to get back in spring and start looking forward to next season. I'm sure it will be really interesting. The rest of the league had better watch out for Green Bay. Austin Gunsel, acting commissioner of the National Football League. In anything I say, I'm speaking for Bert, the late Bert Bell, who sadly passed away watching an Eagle game, just a short while prior to this. As well as for many myself, Bert didn't go too far through the season, but he was most pleased with the new spirit in the Packers, and I presume in green. Whoops. Moving on up. Green Bay. We are most happy with the results of Mitch's regime so far. He has done a marvelous job and deserves a great deal for his credit, as do the boys on the team who have responded to his leadership. It is a fine thing, not only for Green Bay, but for the entire National League. My congratulations to Vince, to the team, and to Green Bay. It's just wonderful. Players holding down starting positions who were drafted by Blackburn include Bart Starr, Jim Taylor, Dan Curry, Ron and Jerry Kramer, Bob Skoronski, Forrest Gregg, Paul Horning, Max McGee, John Simak, Hank Kreminger. He also picked up Gary Knaflick on the trade. Blackburn, who had headed the Packers from 54 to 57, said he was happy to see the development of Starr as quarterback. So, this former Packer coach, Blackburn. he said he was extremely happy with the success of the Packers this year. So he was the coach, and he drafted all of these guys. But it just goes to show you, sometimes coaching can be huge, right? Blackburn drafted these guys. I mean, Bart Starr, Jimmy Taylor, Jerry Kramer, Bob Skoronsky, Forrest Gregg, Paul Hornung, Max McGee. I mean, it traded for Gary Canepa, and these guys were. Blackburn headed the Packers 54 to 57, so he wasn't a coach in 58. But I mean, he drafted these guys, and in 1958 they're 110-1. So I mean, look what coaching could do. And obviously Vince Lombardi came around and whipped these guys into champions. So that the Packers would lose, obviously, the championship the following year, 17-13, to the Philadelphia Eagles. But 1961, they would beat the Giants. My team. Giants. They would beat my team 37-0 to win the 1961. And they would beat the Giants again 16-7 in the 1962 championship. So it was, but as I said in the paper there, said it was, the season came to an end. Both teams finished 7-5. Both teams finished tied for third in the Western Conference. But for the Packers, it was a huge success. For the 49ers, that'd be kind of a huge disappointment, especially more than halfway through the season. They had a 2-game lead, and they were sitting at 6-1. They were in first place by 2 games, and they finished in third place, 2 games out of first place. So that'd be very disappointing. And as I said, for the Packers, they would be in the next 3 championship games. The 49ers would have to wait to get to the playoffs until 1970, where in 70, 71, and 72, they would lose 3 times in a row to the Dallas Cowboys. So once again, season came to an end for the Green Bay Packers, a huge success. And even though, as I said, 49ers, 7-5 just wasn't quite good enough. So that's the way it was on this date, December 13th, 1959, between the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers at Kezar Stadium in pro football's first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.